fractured liquidity is a big problem. For example, whales can't swap because the slippage is too high, so you get volatility on single chains, and the price doesn't propagate. So just because someone changes the price on Juno swap doesn't mean the price has changed on Osmosis or Injective or any other chain. So we're building what we call an interchain liquidity protocol on top of IBC. So think of it like a way to capture some of the value of IBC. That means that every time liquidity is needed somewhere in the interchain, white whale liquidity is moved there.
Welcome back to Juno Communications, the inside scoop, where you'll find us interviewing new and upcoming projects built on Juno. I'm thrilled to announce that we have David from White Whale. They will be with us to discuss their new project launching on Juno. First of all, thank you for coming to the show, David. We're excited for the demonstration. But before all that, David, how are you doing?
Well, thank you for having me, and hi to everybody out there. I'm doing great, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, we're good. We're just putting together a few videos for demonstrations for projects on Juno. So yeah, but we have got quite a busy network, so we do have a lot of projects to start rounding up, but we're getting through it. So thanks for asking.
Yeah, there has been a lot of buzz around Juno lately, so I can imagine there are a lot of people who want to get exposure.
Yeah, well, the buzz was not all positive, so that's kind of why we're here to change, to be like, guys, you know, it's not a ghost chain. There is a lot here, so I guess we're getting there. So I mean, let's just start this out for people that have never have heard about White Whale. What are you guys building? What is your big overarching mission? What is the problem that you're trying to solve?
Sure. Let's start with a little bit of history here. So White Whale originally is a Terra Classic protocol. Almost a year ago, White Whale went live in mainnet on Terra Classic, and you can think of it like an open arbitrage platform. So there was some kind of a vault where you could put in your UST. In the background, you know, you had Anchor running, so you get your 19 point whatever %, and then market makers or MEV extractors could use flash loans to perform arbitrage, and that the part of the profit went back to the vault. So that was White Whale Classic. But then, you know, I think it was May or April or something, the Terra crash happened, and White Whale pivoted from, you know, let's call it a single blockchain application, you know, an application only live on one chain, to what we call an interchain protocol. So after the crash, everybody was a little bit in a shock, and you know, the team sat down and tried to think, all right, what's next? What can we build? And this idea came up where we want to support the interchain in its growth, and everybody foresaw that the number of chains is continuing to grow. On, you know, right now I think we have 50 or 60 in the interchain, but might be thousands in a couple of years, might be millions in a decade, who knows? But the more the interchain grows, the more liquidity is fractured. So you have thousands. So right now you have dozens of DEXs, and we already have fractured liquidity. And as the interchain grows more, we will get more fractured liquidity. And that's a problem. Fractured liquidity is a big problem. For example, whales can't swap because the slippage is too high, so you get volatility on single chains, and the price doesn't propagate. So just because someone changes the price on Juno swap doesn't mean the price has changed on Osmosis or Injective or any other chain. So we're building what we call an interchain liquidity protocol on top of, on top of IBC. So think of it like a way to capture some of the value of IBC. That means that every time liquidity is needed somewhere in the interchain, White Whale liquidity is moved there. That's broad strokes abstract. And yeah, quick break here, and I can go into a little bit more details how people can interact with this, and you know, what's actually live,
Um, just while you're on there, can you explain a little bit more of what the role of a flash loan is?
Sure. So flash loans, they originally come from, I think Aave pioneered them. I don't know. It was an Ethereum protocol that pioneered them. And they are a way, and pardon my technical jargon here, to have a zero collateralized loan that's paid back in the same transaction. So what does it mean in normal language? It means there is a bunch of assets lying around and you can have them, all of them. You don't have to post any collateral. You can take them, do whatever you like, but you have to return them in the same transaction with a small fee. That's a flash loan. And they have a primary use case right now for realizing arbitrage and liquidations. Let's say, so for example, White Whale, we're live on Juno, and Juno Swap is obviously live on Juno too. So let's say there is a price difference between the Juno Atom pool on the White Whale DEX and the Juno Swap DEX. Then there's an opportunity to make money, and people can trade this, so they can buy cheap and buy high, buy low, sell high. That's the idea, not the other way around. And for this, you need capital. And if you don't want to use capital, you can just use flash loans.
So is this how you're doing the cross-chain arbitrage now? Because I mentioned, like, if you have to sell on Osmosis and buy on Juno Swap, you either need to have a huge amount of capital on every single chain that you're doing this on, or you need to make an IBC transfer, which is obviously too slow to perform an arbitrage. So you're working with flash loans there, is that correct?
Almost. So we use flash loans for local MEV. Local means on a single chain. So we have flash loans on Terra and on Juno, for example. But cross-chain, so risk minimized and very efficient cross-chain arbitrage is not possible at the moment. But we're at the forefront, for example, with Skip. We're very closely working together with them to build solutions for this.
Okay. And only then we will actually solve the problem of liquidity fragmentation, right?
It's a next step in that direction. I mean, there are a lot of steps in between. For example, DEX, so interchain DEX aggregators are a big thing, but solving cross-chain MEV or mitigating it is another big step in that direction. Yeah, you're correct.
Nice. As a DeFi protocol on Juno, what do you think needs to happen to bring more liquidity, more users to Juno as a chain? Because I think that's one thing that we're lacking a little bit if you compare to Osmosis, for example. So what do you think needs to happen on Juno?
All right. So if you have a computer, like a mobile phone or a laptop, and it's not connected to the internet, there's limited amount of things you can do. Likewise, when you have a blockchain and it's not connected to external data, there's limited things about what you can do. You can shuffle tokens around, you can build maybe some lottery, DEXs obviously, but as soon as it gets more complicated, for example, you want to build a lending platform, you need external data. And I mean, lending platform, that's the basic primitive in DeFi. And if you want to build even more interesting and exciting applications, you need external data. And in blockchain, that means we need oracles. So oracles is the missing infrastructure piece on Juno. And once that's available, I'm confident that developers will build new and exciting applications that will attract users.
Yeah, the proposal passed, it's been implemented. So yeah, we're all excited for that. There should be a chat about it on the community call coming up this evening, the day of this recording. Yeah, I wanted to just, I'll have a couple more questions after a demonstration, but if Lucas, you have anything else to add while you're on?
Yeah, I had this one more technical question because we're just going through all this technical stuff. And it is, you have been talking about MEV, right, that you're using to capture. And we know especially Osmosis, where I think you're not active yet, but they are big on capturing MEV, and it becomes like this hype thing in Cosmos where everyone talks around like chains capturing the MEV of their own chain and distributing it to their stakers. Will that interfere with what you guys are doing? Or is that a different kind of MEV?
Yes and no. So Osmosis is in a very special position because it's an app chain and it has a primary DEX, and pretty much all the MEV opportunities on Osmosis are on that DEX. So they can build a custom, let's call it, solution baked into the chain. That doesn't work for Juno, for example. Juno has a lot of DEXs, has already, and will have even more in the future. Will have a lot of money markets, lending platforms. So there will be a lot of opportunities to extract value, maybe good or negative. So you can't have a baked-in solution into the chain. So that's, for example, where Skip is very helpful, where validators can opt in to prioritize certain MEV transactions and share part of the profit to its stakers. So that's a good common ground there. And Skip, for example, we're just very, very shortly, I think by the time this video is released, it will be already open source. So our flash loans, they're live, and we will open source our arbitrage bot very soon. And it uses our flash loans, so it can operate on zero capital, and Skip protocol to share some profits back to the communities. And in fact, I think there was, I think Skip posted it a couple of weeks ago where we, so White Whale had a very profitable trade, and I think it gifted, I think 30 Juno back to the SG1 validator stakers. So yeah, that's already happening. Very exciting.
Nice. That's very cool. Yeah, so maybe that's the point where we could get into it, how it works. You said on Terra you had the vault. Do you have that vault already on Juno as well, something similar? How can the user interact with White Whale and benefit from what you're building? And maybe you can show it to us by sharing the screen as well.
Yeah, I think that's the point. All right, so this is the White Whale application live right now. You can find it under app.whitewhale.money. And we are currently live on 3 chains. Here you see it, more coming soon. But let's talk about the application first. So this is a swap interface from, as everybody knows, from Uniswap or most other DEX applications. You can just select tokens, swap them. So it's pretty straightforward here. Then we have pools. You can manage liquidity positions, add, remove liquidity. Here, it's pretty straightforward DEX, I think. We try to keep the UI as clean as possible. So there are already 2 ways to interact with the application. You can swap tokens in and out, and you can LP, and you get swap fees here. Then flash loans, we covered this before. This is an interface for our flash loan contract. So you can post in any message here, hit the flash loan button, and here under assets, you can specify what amount you want. For example, you want 1,000 Juno, and you get 1,000 Juno, can execute these messages and maybe even make a profit. But that feature here is mostly developer focused, and guys who want to build some arbitrage bots or something, they can play around with flash loans here on the interface. And here are the vaults, and they contain the underlying assets of the token. So this is the actual Juno vault, and here is the flash loan that utilizes the vault. And now, as I said, we're live on different chains. So this is the liquidity hub, the whole thing, and it's replicated on, for example, Chihuahua. You can also take flash loans here on Chihuahua, but here there's a Hua vault and different pools and tokens to trade. Same thing on Terra. And all this stuff these liquidity hubs, as we call them, so the DEX and the vaults, they are, standalone applications, and we deploy them on different chains. As you just saw, we're live on 3 chains, Injective and Comdex. We're currently in the governance proposal phase, so there will be 2 more here very soon, and we intend to grow our application with the Cosmos ecosystem. So as more chains come, for example, Neutron, Archway, Say, we'll launch on them too. So you will have a common interface to manage your liquidity positions, do trades, do flash loans on every chain. So I think that's a net benefit for the whole ecosystem. Questions so far before we
I already have a bunch of questions, to be honest.
Yeah,
but maybe you'll answer those. Just so a little bit to the functionality is like, if I have Juno and I paid into the Juno vault, and then people will program the flash loans, because I'm a normal user. I can't do, I can't, like, if I see this, I already know I can't fill this out. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
But if I just put my Juno into the vault and someone else is using it as a flash loan, I'll basically get part of the profit that he made. Is that correctly?
Okay. Exactly.
So that's cool.
So then, the flash loans right now, they take a 0.2% fee on the loan taken. So if I take 1,000 Juno as a loan and do some magic with it, I have to pay back the vault 1,002 Juno.
All right.
Just a quick one. Who tops up the vaults? Whose role is that? Is that White Whale, or is that, do you offer incentives for people to top up the vaults?
Great question. So our application it's in the beta phase right now. So the functionality is limited. So what you see here right now, it all works. So you have vaults, you have pools, you can swap, you can take flash loans, you can manage liquidity position, everything works. What's limited is, for example, there are no liquidity incentives yet. So there's only real yield. So whatever you earn from swap fees or from flash loan fees.
Cool, man.
Which is quite sustainable, though. I mean, if the protocol gets successful and you have like a lot of volume on the flash loans, that alone should probably generate enough revenue for the vault users, right? And then you don't need to be relying on an inflationary token that you give out to people.
Yeah, that's very possible. So that's a very possible scenario, and that's a direction in which we're building. That's also why we're hosting workshops for people to understand flash loans, to utilize them, so that there is real adoption happening. But as I said, so we're currently in the development phase, and more features will be released, and liquidity incentives are part of this, including incentivizing the pools and the vaults. But also our token release will happen sometime in the future, and with that, staking and protocol fees and all that cool stuff. But this is our application right now.
Nice. So you wanted to show us the really cool part, so let's get into that.
Yeah. So I can't show it to you because it's not live yet, but I can tell you what it's going to look like. So everybody just saw these liquidity hubs, the different pools on the different chains and the vaults, like here. And let's say you want to deposit liquidity. So you have to go to the chain of your choosing, for example, Juno, go here and deposit liquidity. That's how DEXs work. So what we are building is a way where, let's say there's this Juno Atom pool, and this pool is on all the 3 chains here. And if you want to get exposure to Juno Atom on all 3 chains, you would have to send tokens everywhere, deposit there, and then manage your liquidity positions in an ever-growing number of chains. So what we're building is basically a one-stop liquidity solution. So you manage your liquidity in one place, like here, but the actual underlying liquidity is distributed to the different chains. So instead of going to Juno, depositing liquidity there, and all the liquidity is on Juno, you deposit liquidity, and it's distributed across Terra, Juno, Chihuahua, Injective, and many more. And the distribution, how it's distributed, like 50% Juno, 30 Terra, that's decided by the free market, by governance. And they can decide how to move liquidity around. And for the user, this is a very convenient way to manage or to get exposure to a lot of ecosystems with their liquidity and have a simple interface to manage that. And for the layer ones, the blockchains, this is a very interesting thing because now blockchains like Juno, like Terra, like Chihuahua, they can direct liquidity into their direction by influencing the white whale governance. So they could, for example, buy a bunch of whale, stake it to their chain, and then move real liquidity into their chain. So that's what we're building. That's the heart of the protocol.
Nice. Yeah, so that answers one of the questions I had before. But I was like, I wait with asking that. Is like, because you're building this on all different chains, and we have been talking that liquidity fragmentation is a problem. So I was like,
Yep.
Isn't what you're building kind of fragmenting the liquidity? But with that solution that you have here, like actually that's not the case. So that's very cool to see. I would like to go a bit deeper into the governance process then here. So will this be like governance proposal that you put on the
No.
chain and then people vote, or is this more like the curve wars?
More like the curve wars. So putting up a proposal and voting and blah blah blah, that's good for a lot of things, but not for moving liquidity around. The market needs to be faster to adapt to new circumstances. Let's say there is a crash happening on whatever chain, Terra 2, maybe not, hopefully not. But then the protocol wants to move liquidity out there, and this can take like a week. So there will be gauges. So once you stake your whale, you'll have gauges, and you can stake them to the chains. So for example, for every whale, you might get one voting power, and you can stake that to whatever chain you like. And depending on which chain got how much gauges staked, they get liquidity into their liquidity hub, so into their application here. That's the idea.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. So, and then if let's say Terra 2 would be crashing, then everyone who had whale staked to the Terra gods would obviously immediately hop on and hopefully change that to other chains. And then the liquidity could be removed more or less immediately, right?
And let me give you a positive example, because I don't want to talk about Terra 2 crashing,
yeah,
which I don't think is happening, but let me give you two positive examples of how this can be used too. Let's say there is insane volume happening on Juno. Then the market, in this case, the whale stakers, can react to that, stake more gauges to Juno, which moves more liquidity to Juno, which yields to higher volume and higher swap fees, right? So that's a positive example. Another positive example, let's say a new blockchain is launching. Typically, they have problems getting bootstrapped. They launch, they have awesome, they dump a lot of tokens, everybody's happy because the APR is insanely high, but usually that's short-lived, and nobody builds something and there's just a lot of token dumping.
Yeah.
So what these chains need, they need live applications and they need liquidity, right? Because with application and liquidity, users come, right? So we have a live application that we can launch on any chain within a matter of days. And with this interchain liquidity system, we can even move liquidity there in a matter of days. Yeah, so that's a way of bootstrapping new chains, and new chains can even bribe, or will be able to bribe, the white whale stakers. So people will be able to put incentives on the chain gauges. So for example, if Juno wants to get a lot of Juno into their system, they can obviously dump a lot of Juno for liquidity incentives on Juno Swap, or they could buy a bunch of whale and stake it to their chain, directing liquidity, or they could put liquidity incentives on the gauges and thus directing liquidity into their system.
Yeah, nice. That was another question I had actually. It's like, am I as a whale holder benefiting from staking it to the chain that has the most volume? But then it's not, I don't benefit from staking my whale to where there is the most trading volume. I benefit from staking it to the chain that gives me the most incentives, and like that, the chains can direct liquidity to their place, and it becomes kind of this fight for who can attract the most liquidity, who can attract the most users to bring their liquidity there. So that's nice. Yeah,
I think it's a quite novel concept, because everybody knows the curve wars, but they were about moving incentives. What we're building is about moving actual liquidity, like Junos and Atoms and USDC, like actual stuff, not some incentive token. So I think that's pretty cool. And with the gauges model we're building, at the end of the day, it's the market's decision how to move the liquidity, and volume is a good metric, but also bribes can influence that. Yeah, but whatever they do, they are free to do whatever they think is best.
Awesome. When can we expect this to come? Is there any timeline on this?
Yeah, so we follow a iterative release process, meaning we don't build everything until it's fully finished and the whole thing is ready. We build it piece by piece. So there's new feature, we design it, we develop it, we audit it, and then we release it. So what I just described to you, all these features, they will come step by step in the coming months. But the whole system, like I just described it, as a complete product, probably half a year. But there will be more intermediate steps with more features and more use cases coming up in a shorter period of time.
Nice. So let's get a bit into your token launch. Is that token gonna be multi-chain, or will it be mainly on Juno, or where is that token going to be, and how can people get it?
Sure. So we haven't made the final decision on where to mint the token yet, but the token itself will be part of every liquidity hub we have. So you will be able to trade and use Whale on every chain we're on. And we're trying to provide seamless interfaces to our staking. So let's say, just for the sake of it, we build our governance on Chihuahua chain, just for the sake of the argument. And then we're trying to build some easy entry points for users to stake their Whale they earned on Juno on the Chihuahua chain. So think of it like they have their Whale on Juno, but they stake it on the governance on a different chain. So we're trying to push the limits in what's possible with IBC a little bit, so to make the boundaries disappear between the chains, so that the user can just deposit in one place. It's everywhere in the background, but for the user, it's just one interface. Governance, same thing. A lot of different chains, a lot of Whale on a different chains. They stake it, and it doesn't matter where they are. It's the same for them. So we're really trying to push things here a little bit.
Well, that's awesome to hear. It's like, I think the biggest problem we have in Cosmos is that the user interfaces with all the different chains and the IBC transfers, it's just for someone who's not Cosmos native, and I think we often forget that even, but when I bring people over from other ecosystems, they're like, yeah, but now I don't have any Juno, so how do I pay gas fee for the Atom that I send to Juno, and I would like to mint an NFT with that Atom and I can't? And you're like, well, in Kepler there is this little thing where you can change the gas, but it's just like there's so many steps and stuff you have to do. So it's awesome to hear that you're kind of pushing the boundaries there and trying to integrate the different chains in one interface. And I hope this tech also then will get used, or what you're building kind of is an inspiration for other chains, and we get like generally in Cosmos, a more seamless integrations of different chains.
Yeah. Can I ask why you decided to launch on Juno first of all, after your Terra situation. Was there a specific reason why Juno?
It's a very pragmatic reason, because Juno is permissionless.
Yeah, just like
It's a very pragmatic reason. So everybody who saw the list, it's Terra, Chihuahua, and Juno, all three permissionless Cosmos on chains. So those were the lowest hanging fruits. But besides that, to make another point here, Juno was helpful in providing a emergency Terra recovery fund to the White Whale team. So that's why it was also prioritized.
Is there anything else you like about the chain specifically?
What I like about Juno?
Yeah.
For sure, there are a lot of things I like about Juno.
Yeah.
What I like most about Juno is actually it's the nerdy version of what I like about Juno. It's the quick development and release cycles of new features. So every time something, maybe IBC, maybe Cosmwasm, something new is coming up, that's the place where it's land first. So that's very interesting from a developer perspective. And I really like that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Just because to get back into like the recovery fund, right? And so you're going to be multi-chain. How is there, like, if Juno saved you, how will you give back to the Juno community? How will White Whale maybe benefit Juno a little bit more than other chains that you launch on, if that is the case? How's that? Yeah, what's your plan specifically for Juno?
Sure. So regarding the emergency proposal, that was a DAO prop. Everybody can read the specifics up. So it wasn't that big. So Loop Finance got the biggest chunk.
Yeah.
We were one of the last protocols who got something, so quite little actually. But nevertheless, it was helpful. So Juno is quite high on our list because we also have a validator there. So we pretty much got the full package, from providing infrastructure to the ecosystem, engaging in governance, but also having a live application with always the latest cool features. And we provide, so we as a team, so the White Whale team provides liquidity to Juno, bootstraps everything, and we can be sure that on Juno everything will be rolled out pretty much the first. So whenever we have new features, this chain will be very high in the line.
Nice. Is there anything you can utilize with? See, I'm not quite sure what way Juno's going to go in terms of interchain security or mesh security, but being at the forefront of that, is there anything you've got in mind? What way you can go with White Whale towards it? Is there anything that your protocol could utilize?
So right now there are 3 solutions coming up to this security problem. One is interchain security from the hub. Then we have mesh security from Juno and Osmosis. And we have Feather from Terra.
Oh, I've not actually heard of Feather.
Yeah, it's Feather is a way to bootstrap new chains, and then they secure them with interchain alliance.
Yeah.
So we have 3 solutions. And if you ask me, I think all 3 have their different strengths and weaknesses, which is why I believe all 3 will succeed in their own domain. Because, for example, just to deviate a little bit from the question, I heard a lot of questions about, or there was a lot of discussion going on between what's better, interchain security or mesh security. Big talk on Twitter, everybody knew it. But both are useful. Think about it that way. Interchain security means renting validators. So if you want to bootstrap a new chain and you don't want to go into the hassle of your own validators and all that shenanigans, you use interchain security. If you're an existing chain with applications and ecosystem and validators, you use mesh security to increase your security. So what I see coming in the next year or years is that we will have clusters of interchain security, like the hub, and maybe even also Juno, where there are 5 consumer chains under Juno, 20 under the hub, and the big chains, they secure each other with mesh security.
Yeah.
So I think that the discussion between what's better is pretty ridiculous. It's like what's better, AMMs or order books? Both have their benefits and place in the world.
Yeah.
And so back to your question, how is White Whale playing into this? White Whale is extremely flexible. For us, new chains are new frontiers, new markets to discover, and new markets where we bring value to the ecosystem in the form of new users, new community, liquidity, and exciting application with flash loans, DEX, and soon more cool things.
Yeah.
And also for us, a way to generate fees, because there's protocol fees on every swap and every flash loan, which benefits the whale holders. So White Whale is in a, I think, unique position to go with the flow in whatever direction that might be, which is very hard to predict because the technology is so new.
Awesome. We've been talking a lot about the whale token, whale holders. Is there maybe an airdrop on the horizon for Juno stakers? Will we automatically get some whale?
Yes, and yes. So there will be. So the whale token, the whale token was live on Terra Classic, but ever since, and it still lives there, but it's not supported anymore. But yeah, so after we pivoted, after White Whale pivoted to the new model, we decided to withhold the token for a moment, to not ship a token with a lot of promises, but ship a token at least with a working product. Even if it's not the end of the road, we have a working product on different chains, so there's value for the token. So the token will be released in the next months. So we're looking at early next year. First, in the social contract to our Terra Classic holder demands us to drop them 1-to-1. So we will do exactly that. But then there are also a lot of new communities, like Juno, for example, to name a big one, but also Terra and Chihuahua and Injective. And we will do airdrops for all these chains. So you will get new whale tokens on whatever chain you're on. So if you're a Juno holder or Juno staker, you will get whale on Juno. If you on top of that stake some Chihuahua on the Chihuahua chain, you will get whale there too, and you can use it on both chains then.
Awesome.
And if people are already using your product now, will they get something extra for being early adopters, or?
There might be something for people who deposit liquidity in advance to liquidity incentives, but I'm making no promises here.
Okay.
If you catch my drift.
yeah. Definitely.
Well,
So then the last question I'd say that I have for you is, what can the Juno community do for you to make White Whale a successful launch on Juno and in general in Cosmos? Like, how can people help you guys?
Sure. So obviously, using the application, that's one thing, how to benefit us. Another way is to, we have validators live, and we also have a validator on Juno. And we use the validator rewards. We don't dump them. We add them to the liquidity. So there's a positive feedback cycle. So the more people delegate to us, the more liquidity will be in our liquidity hubs, which means there's more fees, more volume, and more fees and more volume means more transactions or more profit for Juno itself, but also for the whale holders. So there's positive feedback cycle.
Nice. Yeah, sounds good.
Excellent. Well, thanks for coming on. I think we're just reaching the point of an hour's time. Is there anywhere that if anyone wants to get in touch with your guys to get in contact, is there any socials you can add to the description below, and we'll get that added up. But where are you most active on? What social media platform would you say?
You can reach us on Twitter, on Discord. If you're that kind of guy, you can also write us an email. I don't know.
Forgot about all that, yeah.
But you're 50 years old.
The 30-year-old boomer.
Yeah.
Bro, I'm 30. Be careful.
Yeah, so email is free for you, you know.
Yeah.
So I'll send an email. It's good. I understood it.
But thanks for joining us today on the Inside Scoop. We'll look forward to the next show. We'll have more guests from the Juno ecosystem. Thanks again, David, Lucas. Bye for now.
Thank you so much for coming on, David. It was a pleasure.
Pleasure's on my side. Bye-bye.